I really want to show people I'm not trying to do anything other than what we do. I don't like that kind of thing. Well, I'm just going to do something weird. Well, it's like, I like lots of stuff that's weird, but if you don't really like it, what's the point?
Welcome to Every Album Ever with Mike and Alex. My name is Michael Mansour, and I'm joined, as always, by my very excited co-host, Alexander Volt. Say hello.
I've been waiting 2 fucking hours to do this. As of you.
He has, and I'll explain in a second. This is Every Album Ever, the podcast where we listen to every single album in the world, one artist at a time. It's usually a new discography per episode, except for episodes like this, where we already covered every album by that artist, and they decided to release something else. This is a loose ends episode, and
loose ends
/singles. And today we will be discussing.
Oh, I was so excited. This setup. God damn it. What's this? Oh, okay. We're talking the 41st album by the Melvins, Tarantula Heart. Sorry, new year, old me.
It's funny how it seems like we don't know what we're talking about, and the Melvins are one of our most beloved bands. We did 3 full episodes. Technically, we did 4 episodes on them because we also covered Bad Mood Rising, which came out last year. We did a loose ends on that, but we did all 3 full part episodes covering every main entry Melvins album. So go check those out, please, for the love of God. We love those episodes, and we love this band. And big fucking news, we this little humble tiny pod, we finally got our boy an interview with Buzz Osborne, King Buzzo. You can find the full interview at the end of this episode, or you can jump to it right now and skip us talking shit.
The tour that you had with White Zombie, and I think you've said that you could write a book about all of the bullshit.
The sound guy, road manager, came out the first day and told us, I'm going to fuck over your sound every single night because I don't want you to sound better than Rob Zombie because I'm worried about my job. That was day one. So it's just like, you know what? Fuck you.
You can find timestamps in the description. Our boy Tom Osman, our wonderful history guy who digs up all the dirt, gets review copies of albums for us and interviews for us. He has delighted us with a great interview with one of our favorite artists of all time, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So I'm super. I mean, we've been talking about wanting to get Buzz on the pod for like 2 years now, and it's always like, I don't know what I would say, and I don't know what I would say. That's why Tom's interviewing him.
Well, I is gracious enough to say, "Do you have any questions?" And I was like, "What do you ask a man who's been asked everything?"
Yeah.
I did come up with a few things. Hopefully, they make it in the interview.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And those who watch the show know my brother Robert. He introduced me to the Melvins when I was about 8 years old, and he did all the Melvins episodes with us. He is also very excited and sent a few questions of his own. Very thoughtful things that only someone who's been listening to the band for fucking 30 years could come up with. So that's very exciting and very fun. Big thanks to Monica from Speakeasy PR for hooking us up with this album ahead of time. I mean, the album is out now for everybody, but we're recording this in advance. But we are talking about the new album, which is not very surprising that the Melvins have yet another new album. It's so closely released to the last one that they did.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Yep. Tarantula Heart, which came out on April 19th. Last week, as of the time of this recording, or as of the time of this episode, a different album of theirs, but still a Melvins album. What do you think?
This is probably one of my more favorite albums in the past 10 years.
Really? Of like the later era?
Of like Melvins. I love the return of 2 drummers, joined by Roy. Mayorga.
I can't even Mayorga.
Yes, a Ministry.
Yep.
And this is a little more evil, a little more heavy, a return to that stuff, where I feel like a lot of the new stuff has been weird, trying new things, a double acoustic album,
Great album.
Yeah, and this feels very focused, and it feels so crazy talking about double drummer Melvins era as a throwback, but I guess it is.
It
at
is
this
now.
point in time.
Dude, I was bumping some. I was listening to a lot of random Melvin songs earlier, and realizing that Senile Animal is 2006.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And I remember that as being like, oh, new Melvins.
Yeah,
it's fucking ridiculous.
That was like one of my introductions to them. Talked about that.
Yeah. That was on part 2.
Yeah, but before this, I think, I guess Pincus Abortion Technician was like my favorite before this one, but this one is, I don't even remember.
That was my least favorite, actually.
I may be lying. It may be Five-Legged Dog. There's so many.
No, I can tell you which one it was, because we were all in agreement because of how much we love. I mean, I can say it for sure. Hold It In. I mean, fucking Hold It In is the shit. But, I mean, because Jeff Pincus was on there, but no, Paul Leary was on there, if I'm not mistaken.
I guess Hold It In just like makes the cutoff, because that album is 10 years old now.
Well, that one, you're right. That was part of the later era.
No, I do remember loving Hold It In, but yeah, that's almost next year. It won't be within the 10-year range. So,
okay, fair enough.
Tarantula Heart is in a steady first for me personally.
Really? I mean, I really loved Bad Mood Rising. I mean, I still honestly think I like that album more, but this is a whole different approach. This is like, so there's a lot of really interesting little tidbits of how this thing was recorded, which is new ground for all of them. For one, they're back to at least for this album, they're back to the dual drumming, which I didn't realize how much I missed. And it's still a tricky thing to pull off on a recording to make it feel like there's double drums, but a lot of these songs, they really it does pull it off pretty well.
It's so crazy how powerful Dale is, and always has, always will be.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, on paper, it seems like overkill, but it just somehow makes the drumming better, even if they're playing the same thing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And even and especially when they're not playing the same thing, it's overwhelming in the nicest possible way. Maybe nice isn't the right word, but it's fucking cool.
I know they still use them, but I really miss that signature Melvins trash percussion they had in that double era. And that's all I know how to describe the little clanky things they have that you really get when they have two drummers. These more frilly drums.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But here, it's not just the double drums that's interesting and different. They recorded it fucking weirdly.
Yeah, they had some sessions, and then Buzz kind of took it apart and expanded on it.
Yeah, on his own. They had a couple sessions. They did what they usually do, which is, I guess, riff it out, bring stuff and work it out with Dale. And then it seems like they kind of went their own ways. Dale went with Roy, and they started fucking around and recording a bunch of, or basically writing drum parts to songs that don't have riffs or guitar riffs or music, just writing drum parts. And then Buzz took the sessions, took those drum parts, and then just wrote songs over them or through them. So it ends up, essentially Dale ends up coming out with a brand new album that he had no idea what it was going to sound like. I mean, that's that's very odd.
That's pretty rad. And I was going to say the other thing is I like the guitar playing a lot on this. It's still Melvins. You get what you pay for, you know what you're here for.
Yeah. But
there's some interesting use of feedback and effects and peppering in of these psychedelia effects, and I just think it's neat.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things about this. For lay people or new Melvins people, they'll probably just hear the Melvins and that's it. They're going to hear the same types of riff. I mean, you know, the Melvins type riffs. We love them. Mean Sabbathy. I don't even know what to fucking call them. They're just Melvins riffs at this point.
At this point, they're it's Melvins.
Yeah. Where they can somehow hit the same like 5 notes, but they just do it in different ways where it always feels new somehow. But the main thing that I got from this is simpler structures, simpler foundations for songs, but way more elaborate textures, way more elaborate mixing, and then lots of improv, lots of like random noodlings, crazy guitar work, strange leads, and even I don't remember if it was Dale or Roy that were saying it, but there's a lot of improv involved in the making of the drum parts too. So you hear a lot more jamming on these songs than I'm used to hearing with Melvins.
Yeah, it's kind of like a callback to this being very like primal. And I like the way you put it with all these like layers, and Toshi continues to be the man.
Toshi. Yeah, it continues Toshiing. And it sounds great. It's interesting. Like, it's such at times it can be difficult because of all the bombardment of sounds, but it is pretty straightforward foundationally. Like you look at the opener, which is a fucking behemoth, 19 minutes. Is that the longest song they've ever done?
I cannot say, but it's got to be up there.
It's definitely up there.
There's fucking Lysol.
Lysol doesn't count. Lysol doesn't count. All right, that's a fucking album. That doesn't count. Just because it didn't separate into tracks on CD doesn't mean. But I guess if you're gonna count that, but so that song, even though it's 19 minutes and there's plenty of psychedelic parts in it, and there's a lot of crazy free jazzy stuff in there, it's still kind of separated into like acts, into segments.
Oh yeah. There's parts, and I like the mentioning Miles Davis, especially like the electronic era. The Melvins are actually why I checked out Miles Davis's album On the Corner, because I think Dale said it was one of his favorite albums. And this song, I like, especially the more like ambient parts, I can definitely see like the tip of the hat to that era of Miles Davis.
Interesting. I have not heard much Miles Davis, and I'm sure people will hate me for that, but yeah, go fuck yourself. It's a lot. There's a lot of albums there.
There's a lot of albums, but it's so interesting because On the Corner is like this like dirty, funky thing, but it's also like sinister. And I totally get why they loved it, and that yeah, you could just listen to that and Bitches Brew and not listen to anything. Like, just start with those.
Now
two
you're
albums.
Gonna get stabbed.
Yeah. I have listened to not everything, but I've listened to more than you have.
Yeah, definitely. But the opener, yeah, Pain Equals Funny. Also, the song titles on this album are fucking some of my favorite in years. But yeah, Pain Equals Funny. So it opens up with like a very happy Sabbathy section. I don't want to call it Sabbathy that much because it's not really that Sabbathy, but it's a very big, happy Melvins-y thing.
Yeah, it's like the like light, triumphant sludge riffs that were kind of dominating when they had double drummers. I think of they probably didn't invent it, but I always think of the band Torch when I hear these happy sludge riffs.
Yeah, it does that for like the first 5 minutes, and which would be a strong track on its own. It has these. I mean, at this point, they're really leaning into all the big vocal harmonies, which they've been doing for a while, and they always sound great. And then the next big shift comes around 5:40 with this fucking killer, giant, big, heavy, crunchier riff. It sounds like it would be off the Bootlicker if it were distorted. It kind of reminds me of track 2 on the Bootlicker. Fucking Let It All Go, Let It All.
I can't fucking listen to it. I can't remember all this.
I will remember all of it. I swear, I will remember every song. Let it all all be. Let it all be. There we go.
All right.
It really reminds me of that one, like a much crunchier, heavier, louder version of that song.
I was digging the guitar riffs seem to have this psychedelic effect on them without overcommitting to psychedelia. Like this is still a Melvins song, but they're doing these, like you said earlier, these interesting layers of guitar effects. And then there's like this, like the drums get like very, very simple for like this like boom bap bridge, and then it turns into like the more traditional like menacing Melvins songs we all know. And then the drums, they put this like tingy metallic effect on it. It's very neat. Around the 940 mark, the guitars do this like spidery guitar work, and you get like the clicky drums. It's this very much like, yes, I miss the double drum shit.
Yeah, definitely. The next big section comes in around 9:15, which is where it gets pretty weird. I mean, that's like the weird chunk.
Yeah,
all the psychedelic free jazz stuff, really loose dual drums that kind of hold things together, but they're all very loose. And also there's like this clean guitar playing a riff eerily similar to Boris, like just reminded me quite a bit of it, but it's like, it's almost like incidental. It's just sort of hanging out there. It's not really the riff of the part because there's so much other shit there.
I feel like there's a lot of that on this album where like you could just pick out these little parts and sections of songs.
Yeah, you could pick one thing as the main riff, but it wouldn't be the same if it didn't have this other thing, this other little weird thing that's almost as impactful, even though it's not technically the main riff. It builds up pretty intensely into the final chunk, which comes in around 1340, which is a very, very ugly riff with a busy bass line.
Yes, I love the feedback, the big drumming. This gets really distorted and heavy, and it just feels like that's why I listen to the Melvins. That part of the song.
Really, that's your favorite part of the song?
I think so, because I mean, it doesn't work without the earlier sections, but like, man, it feels good when that section kicks in.
As much as I do love the full song, something about it, because the reason I love it is because it's 19 minutes. It doesn't at all feel like 19 minutes. It feels like, so I love it and dislike it for the same exact reason. I like it because it goes by quickly because it feels like a chunk of songs, and I dislike it because it doesn't feel like one song. It feels like 4 songs. At that point, because they're so distinct, there's no returning to other moments. It's just basically song 1, song 2, song 3, song 4 that's just happened to be lumped together under one track.
I mean, it's probably my favorite song on the album.
It's actually not mine, but I do still like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there is only technically 5 songs, but I think if I was giving like song of the album, it would be the opener.
I mean, it's hard to not give credit to a 19-minute song that doesn't bore you at all, that doesn't drag on, that doesn't feel like it's dicking around so much. I mean, there's moments of dicking around. It's mostly like the final 2-3 minutes of feedback, which is like, you didn't need to do the feedback for 3 fucking minutes, but it's still, it makes more sense in the context of 19-minute song than it would be at the end of a 5-minute song.
They got tired of doing the feedback stuff in the beginning of songs.
That's true.
And they said, okay, we'll put it at the end. Like,
fine, we'll do our drum solos at the end instead of at the very, very beginning.
We get it.
But still a pretty fucking great song. And one of the most interesting of the year so far. I would say easily. It goes into Work in the Ditch, which is, I mean, the dual drums sound good pretty much everywhere, but that's where they started to hit me. At least on first listen.
I think having these big, nasty, dirty riffs to open that song, like, help the, drumming feel more powerful.
Yeah. Very cool heavy riff. And there's like these really evil little textures in that mix. It's really cool stuff. I find all those little embellishments and those little flavors, especially important because of how simple that main riff is. It's extremely simple, but there's so many little nuances and little layers that were clear. Like I could already picture kind of what he was doing, especially since he took these things and just spent fucking countless hours just writing on top of it. Like it makes perfect sense that you get this simplified bass and then just these cool layers that open everything up more. It's a different style of Melvin.
Yeah. I'm not gonna try to like dissect Buzz's lyrics, but I do.
Nor
like,
should you.
no, I do like his more like quiet, subdued vocals, and the lyrics do seem to be very violent on this. I just like that. I was thinking that wrestler Jake the Snake Roberts, how he always cut his how he cut his promos like that, but it was menacing.
Yeah, he was a real villain.
Yeah. So like, I like the like quiet, subdued saying like fucked up shit.
It. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But he also does the big Buzz vocals.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. In the final chunk of Work in the Ditch, the vocals get really repetitive and it starts to feel like they're circling you, which is another cool effect of it. Yeah,
specifically at the end, they do these like cool layers to like close out the songs with the vocals, and it's so weird after listening to 40 plus albums. I don't like, they've always done like harmonies or like the Buzz vocals, but I'm like, I don't know if they've ever like really like played around with vocals like that. These like interesting like back and forth layer things the way they do at the end of this song.
Yeah, it's not like, I mean, it's a thing you got to pay attention to, or otherwise it's going to get lost in the sauce of all the psychedelia and the craziness. But it is something that like, oh, that is another new little thing they're trying out.
Yeah, they're not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's just these like neat little things the album does.
Yeah. Then we got, I'm not going to say my favorite song on the album, but definitely in one of them, She's Got Weird Arms, and easily my favorite song title of the past fucking 10 years. I mean, that is my favorite song title.
Yeah, it's them doing psychedelia. You got the like triumphant guitar lines, but then there's these, it goes back and forth between those ones and then these like unsettling ones where it feels like you're like dizzy at like a nightmare carnival kind of, and it does feel like a throwback to like, or like homage to like that like Pink Syd Barrett Pink Floyd stuff. Yeah,
the Piper at the Gates and all that. I absolutely fucking love it. Because so like you said, it alternates between these two riffs. The weird of the two riffs is possibly one of the weirdest fucking things they've ever written. I mean, it is weird. I mean, I can't possibly describe it. It's just kooky and strange and odd, and it's unsettling if you look at it in a certain way, but it's also funny if you look at it in a different way. It's just a super bizarre riff, and I'm already like, the fuck, man. But it's interesting enough. It's like, okay, and then it goes into this insanely catchy and happy sounding verse, like you said, triumphant, but so damn like beautiful vocal lines like that complement the riff extremely well, and then it just fucking jumps between the two over and over again, and then it's over. It's so damn weird, but I absolutely love it. I absolutely fucking love it.
Yeah, I feel like this feels like Steve like really like finding his voice, not his literal voice, but like
his bass voice, his really bass voice.
Yeah, like really like. And he's like a phenomenal bass player, but it always felt like like Dale and Buzz. But like here, I'm like, if it feels kooky, maybe because Steve's there. Who knows if they lean into like the psychedelia stuff? So
Who knows? Check out episode on Red Cross. Pretty cool. A lot of people who like that band don't like us.
Man, whatever.
At this point, yeah, Steve is like, I would be really devastated if he wasn't their bass player at this point.
Really?
Yeah, I love him. I love him in the band. He's so fun.
Not like not like I'm the like oldest Melvins fan, but I think I've just like accepted the like rotating door,
the nomadic nature of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had a favorite bass player, who would you pick though? I don't know if we talked about this before.
I think we did. I just like you could say it's just because the era I got into them. I'm sure like Joe Preston or like Trevor Dunn is probably like the most technical savvy guy they've had, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's only done upright bass with them, I believe.
Oh, that's true. I guess like Kevin feels the most fair, but I don't care. I'm going like I love Jared.
You going Jared?
And Cody so much. I saw Big Business a few weeks ago. I haven't seen them in forever, and
yeah,
god damn,
hell of a band live.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they are so goddamn good live.
And like Cody's in High on Fire now. Like yeah, so
that's pretty sick.
And then Cody filled in for Dale when he, had some issues and couldn't tour. So it seems like, there's no bad blood, but that for me, that's like Jared's my favorite. I love what a fucking maniac he is. Like he adds, I don't know if there's video on YouTube, but if people could like look up like the Melvins doing Boris with Jared, he just adds this like crazy element to it. I know it's not their band, but I'll just forever love that era.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would go Kevin. Yeah,
Kevin, that's a safe bet. He put in if it was like military service, he put in the most tours.
He put in the most tours for sure. He's also just on what I find to be some like the most brutal albums and did some of the most crazy stuff. I have such a strange fondness for that early 2000s era of Melvins. It's like there's late 90s, early 2000s. But back to this album, we get another one of my favorite song titles of the year, Allergic to Food.
That song's actually about Leah, who did our logo. She's allergic to food.
She is. For those who don't know, she's allergic. Our wonderful logo, the woman who designed that is allergic to every food I've ever heard of. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't know how she's alive.
Crazy. Shout out to Leah.
Hell yeah. That main riff is quite possibly one of their meanest ever, which is saying something.
Mm-hmm. I love the opener, just this noisy shredding into buzzsaw guitar noises is a really effective intro. And yeah, just another one where like I felt like the guitar playing had these like neat little intricacies where like you're still listening to the Melvins, but you could pick apart these. I should say, I don't know what tracks he played on, but when there's additional guitar, that is Gary Chester.
Mm-hmm.
So like, man, maybe I want like a Melvins orchestra, like 2 guitar players, 2 drummers, 2 bass players. Let's do it.
Dude, yeah, they've really never, they've never toured with 2 guitar players, have they?
I don't think so. If it's happened, I've never seen it, but yeah.
That is interesting because there's one thing that I remember reading a long time ago because I believe Buzz produced one of the Cows albums, and I don't even remember if I've even heard. I don't even think I've heard it, but what I remember about it is that it was way more out there. It was way more production involved. It was way crazier than they know. Usually they kind of go in, or at the time they would go in and they just the fucking songs are the songs, and then they record the songs. But I think his ethos at the time was like, the fans will recognize the songs even if it doesn't sound exactly like it does on the album. So have fun on the album.
Mhm.
And that seems to be a thing that Melvins have consistently done, where like these songs live are not going to sound like this live. And it makes me wonder about like a second guitar. Is like, if he really decided, or if they really decided to just integrate a second guitar, I wonder what that would sound like.
Fucking amazing. I'm going to say amazing.
Yeah, definitely. But back to Allergic to Food, it's super fast. It's super awesome. The vocals are these, there's these shouts inside a flurry of drums. It sounds like it sounds like it's in a tornado of drums. It's very fucking cool sound.
And yeah, there's like these effects on the vocals. So
yeah.
Fury of Drums is I don't know if you're still on Allergic to Food, but I think the most furious drums are definitely on Smiler.
Really?
Oh, dude, the cacophony of tom drums in the best way.
Yeah. There's almost moments where it feels like the drums are losing time with each other, and they're not. It's just a lot happening at once. It's like, it's a bit overwhelming. I
feel right at home on it.
It's wild.
Do three drummers.
That's the Boredoms already did that. Well, they did more than that. But when I saw the Boredoms many a moon ago, there were 3 drummers, and it was delightful.
Look, 70 plus drummers is fun on paper, but you know, when everyone's just crowding around Zach Hill and everyone else kind of feels like they're there. Sorry, that's the one I went to.
That was the 88 one, right? You went to 88?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a little
on paper
much.
On paper.
On paper, very cool. But I'll tell you what works in practice is 3 in a theater. 3 of them in a theater with a small Japanese man holding orbs, which is what it was. I don't know what the orbs did, but sound was had, and it was a crazy fucking show. But yeah, like on Smiler, it's another great example of how this really simple main riff, what these killer leads and these really interesting guitar parts that give it an entire new kind of personality. Like toward the end, these wiggly, cacophonous, strange little leads. Oh, they're so cool.
Yeah, around the 240 mark is when I noticed that there's this the wiggly guitar riff is in the song earlier, but around there's like this back and forth thing, and it's so brief, and I wish it was a little longer. But yeah, I love the wiggly guitar riffs on this song. It's so unique, and usually when I think of the Melvins, it's drone, it's heavy. And on this album, and particularly this song, you have these more, not like high pitched riffs, but it's not like boom.
Yeah.
So to normal people, it's a Melvins album. If you're a long time listener, you'll definitely find these interesting little patches.
Yeah,
it'll keep you entertained until next year, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm really enjoying the last most recent stretch of albums too, because I mean, I guess we can count Five-Legged Dog. It's not new material, but I just loved how they pulled it off so well, and I still kind of go back to that one. And then Bad Mood Rising, really fucking love that one. And then this is just continuing that. It's another different approach. It's different enough for longtime fans to find that's a different. It's an actual different approach to the songs. But if you're just a cash Melvins head, it's not gonna alienate you in any way. She's Got Weird Arms, Allergic to Food, and I believe Smiler. At least all those have this exact structure, like part 1, part 2, part 1, part 2, part 1, part 2, where there's kind of alternating between 2 riffs for the entirety of the song, which isn't that deep at all, but all the shit on top of it is what opens it up.
Yeah, I don't expect anything, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't expect anything from the Melvins or think oh, what does this mean for the future? But this definitely sounds like something they could build on,
yeah.
So As long as this podcast is around, we'll cover every Melvins album.
We're gonna keep following it, and hopefully not forget to listen to it before the year ends, like I did with Bad Mood Rising. I mean, I was so mad I didn't hear. I can't believe I didn't realize it. Dude, it would have made my fucking list. It would have made my list. I just didn't hear it in time. I didn't hear it.
I remembered, but some days the Melvins are the Melvins and they're very good, but I just gotta put something else on the top 10.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, one of the strangest and most improvisational albums. It's not weird in the sense of, oh, these songs are super weird. These are what a bunch of weird songs. It's more like it's weird in how they did it. It's weird in how it
the way they attacked, the way they attacked and made the songs.
Yeah, it's very unusual. You could tell they were out of their comfort zone because I would say because the foundations are so simple, but the layers are so complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really point. Well, I guess if I try to point to patterns with Melvin's albums in general, I wouldn't get very far because they don't typically repeat themselves that much. But whatever, it's cool. It's a cool thing that they did. And I'm very, very fucking excited to hear more about it from Buzz himself. And yeah, and Tom did a great job interviewing the children. We should go check out that children episode. And yeah, maybe get some more interviews down the pipe. But when the episode does come to an end, which song should we end it with? And please don't say Pain Equals Funny because it's too long.
Oh man, I can't do that. I almost wish we wrote down who got last song for Bad Mood.
I think it was you actually.
I feel like you should get it then.
Well, if it's gotta be She's Got Weird Arms. I mean, it's gotta be.
It's a fun one. It's a fun
Hell
one.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Hell yeah. But thank you so much for listening and watching and hanging out. Please stay tuned for Tom's interview with Buzz. Huge thanks to Tom for connecting all the things and for getting his hands on Buzz for us. So stay tuned for that interview coming up next. It's going to be fucking cool. Yeah, you can follow me on all social media at Pounder Monkey and Alex on Instagram at
Every Album Alex.
Go ahead and follow Tom in all the places, TomOsmanSounds.com for his music and his podcast, whatever comes next, which you can find on Spotify at the moment, as well as his Substack, TomOsman.substack.com. Links to all that in the description. And of course, baby, Patreon.com/everyalbumever. That's where you go. Bonus episodes, bunch of bonus episodes. You get to see our schedule in advance. You get to vote on polls to decide who we cover next. You could join our Discord, be a part of our community, and suggest a singles episode. So if an album came out this year and you want to hear us talk about it, you know what to do. Go there. And if you're tier 2, then you can suggest a full discography for us to cover on our longer numbered episodes, as well as any album from any discography for us to cover on Patreon bonus episodes. So there's tons of perks. Please go there for the perks and to give us your money, please, for the love of God. Yeah, so up next is an interview with Buzz, with Tom, and after that, we're going to close it out with She's Got Weird Arms. So thanks so much for listening and watching. See ya, whatever.
Stick around.
This is Tom for Every Album Ever with Mike and Alex. And yeah, I can definitely speak for Mike and Alex and also Mike's brother Robert, who sometimes guests on the show, in saying that we're all very excited to have Buzz Osborne on the show. I think there have already been, so there's been 3 episodes going through the discography of the main albums of Melvins. Mm-hmm. There's been at least 1 episode on Bad Mood Rising, and I forget if there's been another one. So this is at least the 5th Melvins episode, but the first one with you. So that is really great. So thank you for joining us, Buzz.
My pleasure.
So
I'll do my best.
First thing I wanted to ask you, how's Dale Crover doing after the back surgery?
He's doing as well as can be expected. Probably better than can be expected, but I've never known anyone that's had this surgery. So it was like 4 discs removed from his neck, went through the front of his neck, and then they put a big plate in. So he can't rotate his head. Well, he was fucked up to begin with, but he can't rotate his head except for on the very top vertebrae.
Okay.
So he can kind of rotate it, but not fully. But he seems to be okay, and it seems to have worked. So We'll see. We're not doing anything. He's got some Red Cross stuff coming up, but we're not doing anything until end of the year with him. And then when we do it, it's going to be with two drummers. We're going back to two drummers again, not because we need to, but because we were playing with Cody, and I was just like, "Oh, let's do that. This is really fun. Let's do more." Yeah.
So that's not going to be with Roy Mayorga on the.
No, Roy's got too much other stuff going on. And then I have a big acoustic tour starting August 1st that goes all over the U.S. and then most of Europe. So it's about 70 some shows. So that's a big deal. Me and Trevor Dunn, and I'm very excited about that. We have a new album, Tarantula Heart, coming out in a couple of weeks, and I'm very excited about that. And the recording we did with Dale and Roy was really cool and odd, even for us. But I think people are going to dig it. So
well, I definitely dig it, having had the opportunity to be listening to it for the past days and weeks. It's basically been my companion for cycling to and from the gym.
Oh, good.
Been a good companion.
You go to the gym. That's good.
I do. I got to keep myself healthy at the age of 42.
I just turned 60 and I work out with a trainer 3 times a week, believe it or not. I think it helps. Plus I golf all the time when I'm home, which is a good 4 or 5 mile walk. Yesterday I did 36 holes. So it was about a 10-mile walk.
You with Alice Cooper?
Never played with Alice. I'm playing with mostly squares, like not rock people. And that's fine. And then I also play in a lot of tournaments.
Ah, okay.
Golf. So it's very competitive. When I'm off, I play in tournaments at least once a week. But I don't find any aspect of golf to be easy. And I think it's a really good thing for me to do. And I'm not there. A lot of people think, some country club type of environment. I'm not there for that. I don't go to country clubs, and I hate those fucking people. I'm there for the golf, and I play with people who are there for the golf. They might not be doing the kind of things that I'm doing for my work, but we have a common language in that we all thoroughly are addicted to something that's outside of what we do for a living.
Yeah. I've only ever played golf once, but I did really enjoy it.
It's incredibly difficult for me. I mean, maybe some people find it easy, but I don't. And it's not like riding a bike. Like I just went on tour, and so when I come back, it's like almost like starting over. It's you lose everything unless you're practicing. So what happens is I'm home, I practice, I get good, I play, then I leave.
Yeah,
I'm gone for 2 months, and I come back, I start over, and I suck, and just go. But what it does for me is it gets me out of my own head, which is a difficult thing to do. Mm-hmm. And since I spend about 70% of my waking hours even when I'm not on tour thinking about music, when I'm on the golf course, I'm only thinking about golf. And musicians are people of the great indoors. Mm. And so it gets you outside, it gets you thinking. And I'm very competitive. So when it comes to that kind of thing, I'm trying to win, especially in the tournaments. I'm trying to fucking win, and I've won quite a few and done really well. So on an amateur level, it's not like I couldn't beat some of these college kids or anything like that, but I can hold my own out there. I can play any golf course in the world without any trouble at all.
All right, so this is the headline: Buzz Osborne is to golf as Steve Albini is to poker.
He loses a lot more money than I do. I'm sure of it. You cannot win. Anybody that I've ever known that plays cards or gambles, they only talk about what they won. Mm. They never talk about what they lost. I mean, it's like with this band. It's like I started making a living playing music in 1988, but I lost a massive amount of money for the 6 years prior to that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to go back and ask you a few sort of questions about the history of the band, but I'd like to ask you a few about Tarantula Heart first of all. So
yeah,
a bit of a frivolous question. Why a Tarantula Heart? Why not a gopher heart or a squirrel heart or an octopus heart?
Tarantula sounds tougher. I guess it's a dog's heart is cuter, a cat's heart is cuter, and we weren't going for cute. Tarantulas are cool. I'm very afraid of them. So personally, even the ones that can't supposedly hurt you. I don't really particularly like spiders. So
They're
or
not
any
really cuddly.
insect for that matter.
Yeah.
No, they're not cuddly. So Tarantula Heart would be, granted they have hearts, as far as I know, I would assume. They're arachnids, So yeah, so it's a whole nother thing. If you believe in such things, if there's a great maker up there, a spirit in the sky or whatever it is, he looks down on all the evil on the earth and smiles, because this is part of the whole thing. When a grizzly bear rips apart a elk's foundling, God smiles.
Yeah.
That's how it works. A tarantula would be just, and their horrendous heart would be just as important as a dolphin's heart.
Well, dolphins are pretty rapey, so
Yeah,
it's not all
yeah.
sunshine and rainbows with them.
Well, it's always funny to me when they go dolphin-free tuna. Well, what about the tuna?
Yeah, no mercy for the tuna.
No mercy for the tuna. You can go ahead and eat those. This is dolphin-free. Oh, dolphins get a free ride. Oh, because they're cute.
Selfish bastards. At what point in the writing process did you decide, or did you figure out that Pain Equals Funny was going to be a near 20-minute opener to the album?
Quickly, I realized that. That's my favorite song on the record. I think it's the one that works the best. Has the most. I've read a great deal about movies. Are a big deal to me. Movies and movie directors are a big deal to me. Certainly not an expert or anything like that. And I certainly never went to film school or anything. But I've read an awful lot about how directors work, especially directors like John Huston or Sidney Lumet or any of these people, and Kubrick, of course. If you can really figure out how he worked, he's very, very secretive about all that stuff. But they all have techniques and ways of looking at what they're doing that I think are very similar to making a record. You're trying to art is communication, and whether you understand what it is or not. And so I'm trying to take people on some kind of journey that's outside of what they normally get in their normal everyday life. And so if you view it as how am I going to lay into this, it seemed like the right thing to do, especially now that people seem to think they've went reverse and think in terms of albums now, as opposed to CDs. Whereas with CDs, it was one continuous thing. Now it's like side one, side two, which I think is a little archaic. But since that's how people want to think about it, then that's how I have to think about it. And that's okay. I mean, I ultimately don't care about what medium people listen to my music on. It's probably all streaming, so it doesn't make much difference. But albums, we used to make 50-minute plus albums, and now you can't get that much on a single LP. So people are really getting screwed from what they used to get. You can get about 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes to really have the better quality if you consider vinyl really good quality, which I don't. But about 35 to 40 minutes is probably about what your limit is. And so a 19-minute song on there is about as much as we could put on there. And I just thought, I'm capable of listening to long pieces of music or watching long, drawn-out movies and being fine with it, And not unlike, if you're familiar with Andy Warhol and the way he made movies, and especially the early ones, he was very capable of looking at things for long periods of time. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, we're not making hit singles. We're not trying to be pop punk or some bullshit like that, which to me is like, honestly, if you combine all the pop punk, maybe aside from the early Descendants, I'd rather listen to the fucking Osmonds or the Archies. They do it better. And so I'm not looking for something like that. And I don't compare myself to people like that. And we really are a punk band in the truest sense of the word, in that's where my mentality comes from. And I learned those lessons really early on with things like Throbbing Gristle and Flipper and just it wasn't all the same, or slowing stuff down. Later, you could slowing stuff down like the way Black Flag did, and just on and on and on. And at the same time, very, 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 very influenced by Atom Heart Mother by Pink Floyd, and records like that. I mean, they did that a long time ago, and they did it really well. Or a song like Echoes. If you look at Echoes on the live version of Echoes on Live at Pompeii, I would say that version is probably in my top 10 songs of all time. You know, that's unbelievable. I mean, that Live at Pompeii, Pink Floyd, that's Pink Floyd to me at their absolute zenith. It's unbelievably amazing, and I will never tire of it. And so I'm capable of liking, hardcore punk rock as well as Pink Floyd, as well as Miles Davis, as well as, Judy Garland, and Jimi Hendrix and everybody else involved. I mean, I'm capable of all of that and understand it. The hybrid of Captain Beefheart mixed with Judas Priest mixed with Throbbing Gristle doesn't sound like a bad thing to me,
Not at all. I think Pink Floyd and metal is a really good reference point because I guess maybe for a lot of bands and for a lot of listeners, there's sort of an expectation that, you have like a 20-minute or a 25-minute track at the end of the album, and it can almost feel like a thing. It's like, okay, they're going to go off on one here at the end. But if you have a really well-constructed longer song, it can be incredibly effective at the beginning. And I like the way that Pain Equals Money really evolves. Like, first of all, when I was listening to it, I was thinking, is it like two different tracks that they've put together? But it's really kind of evolving the themes, I would say. Is that kind of the way that you would look at the track?
Yeah, it's three different parts, and that came out of the jamming that we did and put together. But I don't know that you could do a 20-minute track all at once. That'd be tough. It's too much. Too many things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Start over. But I mean, we put that together in the same way I would imagine lots of bands would do that. But and I have done long tracks at the end of albums. I've done that. But, at this point, the last two albums we've done have had long opening tracks. And hopefully that's going to continue. That's what I hope. I really want to show people I'm not trying to do anything other than what we do. I am okay with this. And I figure if I'm okay with it, there'll be other people in the world that will be okay with it as well. And I'm not being perverse.
Yeah.
At all. I don't like that kind of thing. Well, I'm just going to do something weird. Well, it's like, I like lots of stuff that's weird, but if you don't really like it, what's the point?
Yeah.
That would easily be my favorite track on the whole record. Easily. I think it's an amazing track. Weirdly, when we did the record, we did it in such a strange fashion that I didn't know what people would think. And I've lived with it for the better part of 2 years. And, when you live with something for that long and you were there from the very beginning, your ideas about what it is, they change and you hear it differently than people would for the first time. So
yeah,
I didn't really know what people would think. And it turned it into the record label Ipecac, and they waited a couple days and they got back to me and said, we think this is our favorite stuff that you've ever done. Certainly our favorite stuff that you've done on Ipecac. And I was like, I can't believe it. It's just okay. I approached it in such a strange fashion.
Yeah.
That that was kind of surprising to me. And then I've heard that from other people too. Oh yeah, this is really good. We really like this. It's like, wow, I couldn't have done it in a more clumsy feeling way and have it come out good. And it wasn't the plan from the beginning. I just kind of fell into that. And it worked. I don't know that I'd ever do another record like that again, because if I went about it the same way, then the musicians involved would know.
Yeah.
And then they would play it different.
And
so when we did these jams with the drummers, we did 2 days of jamming where we had, 7 or 8, 15 to 20-minute jams. And then I took rough mixes of that stuff and lived with it for a long time. And found sections that would work, and then took those drum mixes, had Toshi cut out those sections, like here's a 6-minute section or whatever, and then I wrote music to that didn't exist prior to that, and then had Steven come in and play bass on it, added vocals, and then played it. When I played it for everybody, they were like, well, what is this? Where did this come from? Because it's nothing like what had it originally sound like. Me and Steven were in the control room with isolated drum and bass, or guitar and bass, and then the drummers are out in the main room playing. So they're listening to what we're doing in headphones and jamming along with it.
Yeah.
But I didn't 90+% of that I didn't use. not the guitars or bass. I rewrote new stuff. And the first one I did was Allergic to Food.
Mhm.
And when I got done with it, I was like, this came out really cool, and I can't believe that it worked as well as it did. And this is how I'm going to approach it. It wasn't until then that I realized, I could do more of this,
Where did Gary Chester fit into that sort of, the different stages of that process and the improvisation? How did you bring him into that?
Well, the drums were sort of improvised. I mean, I had a basic riff, and me and Steven would play, and then there's a little of that I used. But and then it's like you take a drummer like Roy and Dale, and get them locked into something for about 3 minutes, and then for probably the next 10 minutes, they're going to be at the peak of what they're doing, and they're going to have it. They're going to have something there, and they're going to be playing it really well. And then maybe it'll taper off after that. But so it was improvised to some degree, but it was, they were doing certain patterns, and then they'd lock into it for a little while. And I was just looking for those magic moments that would lock in, but I did not digitally edit it all together. I just used long sections and wrote stuff to that. And so I had all that done. And then I'd say we did a tour in the fall of the U.S. with Gary Chester's band, We Are the Asteroid. And I had known Gary for a long time, since we'd been on the same label in the late 80s, early 90s, Boner Records in San Francisco and he was in a band called Ed Hall. I always knew he was a great player, and I was looking forward to playing, doing those shows with him, and I knew he was a good guy. And then I was always wanted to do something with him. So I asked him to come out and play on this record. I had a bunch of places me and him could play a lot of guitar solos, and those were in there. And so he came out and played along to a bunch of the stuff that was already done. And me and him spent a couple of days just doing all kinds of stuff on it. So he wasn't involved in the writing process, but he was involved in a lot of, me and him went back and forth soloing, there's probably more guitar solos in this record than I've ever done,
Well, I was wondering about, I think you brought up Allergic to Food before, and there's sort of some wailing and screaming guitar playing going on that. And I was wondering if that was you or if that was Gary. Is it a combination of both of you?
Yeah, we're both playing all over everything. So okay. I would have to go through and tell you. And some of it I wouldn't be able to tell you. Oh, I'm not sure who played that,
Yeah.
But there's a lot. He's on every song somewhere, and, I'm not a massively picky. If you get something that sounds pretty good, remotely close, and it's cool, then that's how it's going to go on there. He's a great player. You trust people like this. You trust Roy, you trust Dale, you trust Steven. You let them do their work, and you will really get a better product out of it, to me anyway.
You brought up Toshi Kasai. Yeah. I never know if I'm pronouncing the last name right. How does working with him compare to other producers and engineers that you've worked with over the years?
I've worked with more traditional producers in the past, certainly on our Atlantic records. I can't say I enjoyed it that much. From what I know from most producers, they're very expensive and they do very little. I would really have to be shown how we were going to benefit greatly by doing that. I think the records we did for Atlantic, certainly the Stoner Witch and Stag records, they sound really good sound-wise. But I think we would record those records in a way that I like more now, because they sound a little stiff to me at this point, overproduced, and not in a way that I appreciate. Those are classic records as far as like our fans are concerned, even though they weren't overly accepted when they came out, but have since, this is a classic record. Okay, great. But I hear it warts and all, and I especially had a really hard time with the producer on the Stag record. He made my life miserable during that whole recording, and there was really no call for it. And I think it was bullying and silly in a lot of ways. And I don't look back fondly on that recording at all. I don't have any happy memories about any of that stuff. So that may I had a better time on Stag, but I can't pretend that I had a good time doing that. And I think it was if I had to do over again, I would just I would fire him. You know, I wouldn't
Yeah.
go through that. I wouldn't go through that again. It was silly. The whole thing was silly. But you know, I liked Joe Barresi. Working with him was fun. I would like to, you know, we'll never do it, but if we re-recorded those records now, I know we would do a better job. And I know, well, better. I mean, that's arbitrary, but I mean, I know I would do something that I liked more. You know, because I certainly wouldn't have those memories along with it. But I think we would do a better job. I think a record like our new record or Hostile Ambient Takeover. I like those much more. Or Nude with Boots, I think is better. Certainly, Bad Mood Rising sounds amazing. Our new record, this one is more. It's more brutal. It's more more of what I like, you know, on a new record production wise. And Toshi is really capable of anything. I mean, I'm a traditionalist in that if I find something that works, then I will continue doing it, you know, on a pure production level, but not necessarily in the writing of the songs or anything like that. I'm not really go back and do the same formula over and over and over. But with him, he understands what I like. He understands how to work with us. He said the first time we worked with him that we were the first band that had not brought in albums that they wanted to sound like. You know, here's 5 records. We want the drums to sound like this and this. We didn't do that, and it had never occurred to me to do that. Oh, you just bring in records and tell them this is what we want to sound like. You know, so I just never would have thought of that. So
what kind of guidelines did you give him, if any?
Nothing, as far as no guidelines. I'm more of a accidentalist when it comes to that. The way we have it set up now, I have a bunch of amps wired up. I can switch out the speaker cables really quickly to any amp that I have. We have a couple of combo amps that we like that I'll use. Any wide variety of things. I mean, on the Bad Mood Rising, I went to the trouble of writing down every single guitar, every single effect, every single thing I used on it, and I have it. And I think people would be pretty surprised about the wide variety of things that went on. You know, I'm probably more likely to switch guitars to do an overdub than switch an amp, because every guitar has its own story to tell. You know, I'll write a different song on every guitar. You know, just from the way it feels in your hand. So, Ben Toshi's he gets what we're doing.
You mentioned earlier, you kind of made an offhand comment about not making any money in the first like 6 years of the band. And
losing that.
I wanted to ask you, like, within that time period, you've talked about the first tour you had in 1986, and you've given this kind of dry, humorous account of it and the various mishaps. But I imagine at the time it was pretty disheartening. So how did you and the band regroup after that experience? We
said we'd never tour again, but we still like playing music, and we did okay on a local level. And we went directly through the southern part of the U.S. And at that time, if you weren't a skinhead and you weren't playing super traditional punk rock, they had no time for you. And they made sure we understood that. They had no interest in our long-haired bullshit. No interest, which I thought was really funny. I mean, I didn't see any reason why going out and losing a bunch of money and playing to a bunch of people who hated you was going to do you any good at all. You know, still don't think that with bands. I've told baby bands this a million times, and they just pay no attention, which is, let's say you're in a town like Los Angeles. We'll draw a circle, like a 600-mile circle around Los Angeles, or like, let's say 700 miles, and say, if you can't make money or make it work inside of that circle, you can't make it work driving all the way to Delaware from LA. You know, I mean, in California, you have, you know, probably 15 different places you could play. And then if you expand out a little bit, you got Vegas and Tucson and Phoenix, and you could do, you know, probably 16, 17 shows just in that area. And if that doesn't work, with 3 major markets being San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Um, I don't know why you would want to leave that. So what we did is we went home from that, and about a year later, I moved to San Francisco, and we restarted the band down there. And weirdly, we started doing really well almost immediately there. I mean, well, really well compared to not. I mean, we're making a little bit of money, but we're still working shitty jobs. But Dale and I figured we could work shitty jobs anywhere, which is true. And we did not want to be in the Northwest anymore. And we went down there and immediately got a record deal with Boner Records. Worked on and put out the Osman record in like 88, 89, and 88. And then got, for some reason, that record did okay. I don't know why. We didn't tour. And then got our first royalty check from that, which gave me and Dale each probably about $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we just said, let's just stop working and concentrate on this full time. And we haven't went back to work.
Yeah.
And then we were told, I think you guys could do a tour in the US, and got talked into it by a booking agent. And I was just like, I just don't have any interest in trying to make that work. And he convinced us that it would be okay. And we went out and it worked. We made a little bit of money, and then we just never looked back. I just kept hustling, working constantly and doing albums. And so, long before the grunge explosion and getting signed to Atlantic Records, we were already doing okay.
Yeah.
Long before it, So I don't, I guess I don't fault bands for doing whatever they want, but that didn't work for us. That's not how we did it. I mean, I was never in a position to go out and lose thousands of dollars on tour. I don't have that kind of money. Never. I come from very low middle class, my family didn't have money to give me. I had nobody paying off credit cards, or I didn't even know what a credit card was. I always worked. If I wanted money, I always worked since I was, 11 or 12, if I wanted money. And the idea of getting money from my parents or just having them pay for stuff, that was just absurd. I mean, I needed to get out there and bust my ass one way or another, doing all kinds of menial labor jobs. So, I mean, I understand that kind of thing. I get it. I understand what working and being a musician really is. And I've never had anything more than a minimum wage paying job ever. And I was happy to have those.
So you managed to sort of recalibrate, change the environment. You got some momentum. You started making money. You started touring again and having some positive experiences from that. And then just to drag you into one more little trip down negative memory lane, you've talked quite a lot about the tour that you had with White Zombie, and I think you've said that you could write a book about all of the bullshit. So I'm just wondering, do you have like any little nuggets for us, maybe a little story, incidental story from that tour that you may not have talked about in interviews before?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what I've talked about, but it was every rock star trick in the book. And I come from the punk rock school. I don't like that kind of shit. If I was forced into that position now, I would walk away from, and I would tell them, I'm going to walk away and I'm going to tell people exactly why we're quitting this. You guys are a bunch of fucking dicks. And everybody that works for you are a bunch of fucking assholes. And I don't like this at all. I don't know why I have to put up with that. I mean, I shouldn't have to. And I've had to put up with that kind of thing on a lot of levels. And I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. I mean, I don't like the people that run Ozfest or ran Ozfest. They're a bunch of fucking assholes. I don't like big tours where the road crew treats you like absolute fucking dog shit. I don't like any of that. On that tour, for one thing, the sound guy, road manager, came out the first day and told us, I'm going to fuck over your sound every single night because I don't want you to sound better than Rob Zombie because I'm worried about my job. That was day one. So it's just like, you know what? Fuck you. And fuck you, the dude that's in charge that hires all this shit. I had a miserable experience on that tour. And it was all because of the atmosphere that they provided. On the whole tour. It was fucking horrible. And if they want to think that I'm just being a baby, well, fuck you guys. I don't give a fucking shit. I certainly don't need your endorsement. Thank God, But I'm like an elephant. I never forget this kind of stuff. You don't get to treat me like shit and just walk away from it. You don't get to. For what it's worth, I will hate you forever. Now, I'm willing to accept an apology. I'm totally willing to accept that. And I totally accept that people do change and maybe they can't see the error in their ways. But until that happens, fuck you. You know, I have done nothing wrong except tell the truth. And if you want to pretend like that's some kind of nasty thing for me to do, well, you started it.
In terms of, having this mentality of not accepting bullshit, what would you say to someone who insisted that you need to schmooze or go to parties in order to gain a footing in the music business?
Well, I never have. Never. I can't do that kind of stuff. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at I've been invited to massive amounts of stuff like that, and I've always said no. I don't want to go. I don't like it. I don't like managers and big wheel people that, well, you should go and grease the wheels for some other big deal. It's like, honestly, I'd rather just have music not work and get a job than have to do that. Not good at it. I'm not good at those kinds of things. And I'm way too sensitive about what I'm doing and about my place in the world to put up with lower level fuckheads or 10%ers giving me a bunch of shit. And we've never sold millions of records. And so then what it's looked at, when you have that kind of attitude, it's looked at like you're just jealous. I'm not jealous of anything these people do. And I don't fault them for their success or their money. I couldn't care less about that. I fault them for being horrible human beings. Not to mention, it's like everything else in the whole rock world. It's like, and the movie world and all those kinds of things, whether it's, drugs, whoremongering, drug addicts, drugs, alcohol, date rape, all of it. I'm not interested in any aspect of any of that. I don't do it. I've never been a part of it. I don't endorse it, but you lead by example.
Yeah.
I don't do those kinds of things. I never have. Never, So if people want to view me as just angry because of my success isn't as much as Rob Zombie, it's like, well, I'm also friends with lots of people who are massively successful that I'm not upset with. So until they do something like that to me, then we'll take it from there.
Then you've got the receipt.
Yes. I've been on tours with big rock stars like Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley. Those guys are real rock stars to me. They're in the traditional sense of the word. They don't act like that. Their road crew weren't like that. If they don't have to do it, no one has to do it.
Yeah. Secure in their position.
They're not worried about it at all. It could not have been a better environment. And you're around totally nice people. We did shows with the band Rush. They didn't act like that. Not at all. So it's like, what? To the people that do, it just makes them look worse.
Yeah.
Gene Simmons is nicer than you are. And he's the god of thunder. He doesn't have to do it. So, we toured with bands like Nine Inch Nails. They weren't like that. They were super nice. Just on and on. But there's other tours like Ozfest or the White Zombie tour and Rob Zombie in particular, because he was in charge, so it's his deal. That just makes me think. I don't need to be okay with this.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the long answer, anyway.
Touching on a collaboration, a fairly short-lived collaboration that you had, Crystal Fairy. It sounds like you and Dale were the more committed part of that group. Can you say a bit about what happened with that collaboration, why that fell apart?
Well, I would say a lot of it was creative differences, and you get to this certain point where you realize it's just not going to work. And which is unfortunate, because I think that's the best thing certainly those two people have ever been involved in. And I think it could have done really well, but too many other weird things in line for it to actually work. So
yeah,
it's from there.
So basically Robert, Mike's brother, and Alex wanted to ask some questions. So I've sort of fed some of their questions through me, but Robert has a few questions which are so specific that I couldn't even pretend that they were from me if I wanted to. So
okay.
The first question actually is something which I think I don't need to ask you, because he wanted to ask you what your favorite Captain Beefheart album is, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, your answer would be there's two of them, Clear Spot
Yeah.
and the Spotlight Kit. Is that the correct answer?
That would be the answer. Yeah, I love those records.
After we talked, I went and I bought the Spotlight Kid. No, sorry, Clear Spot. I bought Clear Spot and I absolutely love it. I haven't bought Spotlight Kit yet because the versions I could see of it had a really shitty cover, and I want to get the one where he's in the suit on the cover of it. So I'm kind of holding out for that one.
Well, you can listen to it streaming and see if you like it.
That's true. That is true. I'm a little bit resistant to streaming.
I do it out of convenience. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at like the way I did cassettes when I would record stuff to cassette for convenience.
Yeah.
In the 70s and 80s, that's the same kind of deal.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point.
It's hard for me to take a big record collection with me on tour. Things like that. So
yeah. No, fair point.
But those two records, I think, are most people would say, "Oh, Trout Mask Replica." I like that record, but I like a lot of his records. I mean, Safe as Milk, and there's just so many. But those two are probably the ones I've listened to the most.
Yeah.
One of them was produced by Ted Templeman, who went on to do Van Halen records.
Oh yes, I knew that name was familiar.
First, yeah, did Captain Beefheart before that. So there you go. That's a challenge for you. Yeah,
that's a move. This is a really specific question from Robert. When you use the blue box pedal for Eggnog, for the Eggnog EP, did you pair it with the Rat pedal, or did you just use it on its own?
It's both. Paired with the Rat pedal. The blue box is a really tough pedal you have to be careful with that pedal because you'll roast your speakers. It just eats speakers at a high volume. There's so much low end to it. It'll just blow speakers really easily. I have a new version that similar the pedal that I helped design with Hilbish. That's called the Deathamizer.
Oh yeah, I've watched the little Instagram video with that.
Yeah, it's more the same kind of deal, but more control on it. And I use that pedal all the time. Love it. That's part of my main pedal board. And I also have a compressimizer and a pessimizer, and we're working on another pedal pretty soon. But I use that, his stuff, his amps. I use guitars by the Electrical Guitar Company, and I use cabinets by this guy that builds cabinets called Tyrant. So it's pretty much all the gear I use. I talk to one guy, he makes it, and almost none of it you can get at Guitar Center, unfortunately. But I like to deal directly with people. It feels more human.
Yeah. Another very specific question from Robert. What is the story behind the recording of the man losing his shit on the song T-Berg Off a Walk with Love and Death?
Oh, God. Well, there's two albums in that. There's an album that's more of a traditional album, still pretty weird. And then there is a soundtrack record that we made without having a movie. I was just like, if we were going to do soundtrack music, what would it sound like? And so most of that is me and Toshi, most of that album, and that took us a lot longer to record than the regular record. We worked on that probably for a year and a half, probably. And we did a lot of field recordings. And one of those, one thing we thought was really cool was you could put a microphone outside and you get this massive ambient sound without recording anything in particular, And the other thing he would do, Tosh would get on the bus, like the mass transit in LA, and he had a recorder that looked like a cell phone, and he would pretend like he was on his cell phone and would stand next to people, a wide variety of people. So we got all kinds of recordings of stuff, and eventually you get stuff like that. So there is no story other than it's a found recording that we made randomly. And, I really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then me and Jesse Nymanen did a 33-minute movie on that soundtrack. Used that soundtrack and then made a movie that was called A Walk with Love and Death that we put out a little while ago. few years ago. Came out really good. A lot of stuff I filmed, a lot of stuff he filmed. I'm very much into photography, and I filmed a whole bunch of stuff on tour. Filmed a whole bunch, and used a lot of pictures. And then me and him spent about a week and a half at his house, cutting a whole movie together, which came out great. I would love to do more of that. So we made the movie to the soundtrack.
Interesting.
Yep.
Talking about movie soundtracks, are there any particular movie scores that stand out to you that you would kind of say your absolute favorite, or that you go back to more than any others?
Lately, I've been listening to massive amounts of James Bond stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I really love all of it. I think, weirdly, I think that Chris Cornell's James Bond theme is my favorite at the moment.
Interesting.
It's fucking awesome. I love it. He did such a good job on it. It was
he was a great singer.
Great singer, but the lyrics on it are what really put the hook in me. It was there's one lyric, arm yourself because no one else here will save you. I love that, the lyrics really are really good on that. I think it really, are you ready to die? All the stuff that I think James Bond is. And I love James Bond. I love the books. I love the movies. Ian Fleming's amazing. His life story should be a movie, Hard drinking, hard smoking, died at 56, wrote all those books that have turned into billions of dollars worth of shit. I mean, he is a massively important literary figure. Certainly just on how much has been done on top of what he started.
Yeah.
It was just a huge deal. I mean, I don't know that there hasn't been, but I don't know of a movie about him I think would be super interesting. And I believe that he wrote a lot of that stuff while he was living in the U.S., I believe.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I would watch a movie about Ian Fleming. I think it would be, where did all this come from? It's all his experience in the military and all that. I mean, was a smart guy, dead by 56 years old,
Yeah, well, as you say, like with the movies having become such a huge industry, I would think that there would be plenty of people who'd want to learn about the story of the person behind the stories.
Oh my God, I would think so. And his book, I don't know if you've read any of his books, but I would highly recommend them. They're fucking great.
Yeah, I don't think I have. I don't think I actually have ever read a James Bond book.
Oh my God, I love it. They're so good. They're so good. I'm always looking for those books. Like first edition copies and old version. I love it. I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, collect books to a certain degree. And I found a couple of his in English editions in Brighton, of all places, last year that I was very excited about because they're 60-year-old books. It's just like, oh my God, this is so cool. There's lots of stuff like that I have that I just would, it gives me nothing but massive amounts of pleasure, like signed Flannery O'Connor books, and just on and on like that. They're really difficult to find, and or Cormac McCarthy books. Finding signed Cormac McCarthy books. Fuck, man, I would give those up for anything.
Yeah,
he's not signing any more of them.
That's true. There's the limited number, and there's not going to be more.
There's not going to be more. The one I'm looking for now is signed Dr. Seuss book.
All right,
that I would really like to have, or Charles Adams. Either one. I'd love to have a signed Charles Adams book. They're not signing anymore either.
Now, Buzz, I don't want to keep you too much longer. Have you got time for 2 more questions?
Sure.
General thinking about music world now question: what do you think about AI and its effects or potential future effects on art and music?
I'm not worried about it. I mean, it's not very human. I mean, there's been Luddites out there in the world that have always been concerned about new technology. I'm not. What can it do? Oh, it's going to take away jobs. Well, they said the same thing about the coal mining industry. I'm sure the people that had the buggy whip industry prior to cars were probably all upset when cars came along. I mean, adapt or die. It's just, I've heard these people go on and on. Well, this is taking the money out of people's mouths and blah. Okay, motherfucker. How many times have you listened to our records streaming? Go buy
Mhm.
all of our fucking albums. Fuck you. It's like put your money where your mouth is, bitch. Oh, I should pay you, but you don't have to pay me. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Shove it up your ass. If you're a good enough artist, you shouldn't have to worry about it. And I don't want to hear any more of your crybaby bullshit because you probably weren't good to begin with. Oh, you want a leg up? I should help you. I'll help you as much as you helped me. How about that? Oh, yeah, zero. And I mean, people are worried about AI. It's like, I don't know. I mean, the AI I've seen is interesting, but, I mean, it's only as good as the information you feed into it.
Hmm.
The one thing you can't get on the internet is the human contact of playing a show in front of people. You just can't substitute that. No matter how many cameras you use, no matter what you do, it's going to be very difficult for you to replicate that.
Yeah.
And it's the same when I go to a movie, which I love, but I also love musicals, which I think are fucking amazing. And I also love going to a play.
Hmm.
Those are amazing too. So it's like, which is better? Well, probably the musicals and the play are better. So AI is not going to do anything to that. If you're an artist and you're upset about AI, try to figure out how to make yourself so good nobody can deny it. Don't be concerned about machines. You work with machines all the time. Where do you draw the line? You know,
Yeah.
when we're getting on an airplane, that cuts in, or we're sending things Federal Express. Well, that cuts into the Pony Express. You know, well, Pony Express is now out of business. Like, well, nobody gives a shit. This is how life works. I've already experienced this for a long time and came to the conclusion that there's nothing I can do about it when it comes to streaming.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nobody in the major record business is getting rich off of selling records. Nobody. The people that are getting rich are the promoters doing live music because that's where people get the most action.
Yeah.
That's the people in the music industry right now that are making the most money. Certainly not the record labels. There's not any money. If you figure, I don't know how much a streaming service costs. Let's just say it's $15 a month. Let's just say that's the price of one CD. It's not even the price of half an album.
Yep.
There's no way you could get paid like that. There's no chance. But way more people can hear your music. So what do you want? Do I want people filming me at shows if they want to and putting it on the internet? The bands that don't allow filming at their shows, what the fuck are they thinking? You're just gonna die out there. It's a new world. Get involved in it. Put me on the internet. It's still not gonna be as good as seeing me live, and people know that. They know that ultimately.
Yeah.
You know?
And I can tell people as well that your hair is very impressive face to face at
Yeah,
short distances.
exactly.
Buzz, just to finish off with kind of like, I
Yeah.
guess, sort of a homogenized question, thinking about Tarantula Heart and thinking about what's coming next. What's the best way for people, aside from obviously, yes, it's streaming, but other than that, what's the best way to get hold of it, to appreciate the cool artwork? Where can they catch you on tour? And what's the best way for people to keep up to date on what the Melvins is up to and doing in the future?
Well, you can check our websites, like Instagram Melvin's account or the Facebook account or Ipecac stuff. It's not hard to find. A 2-minute internet search will give you all the information you need. Tarantula Heart, you can buy the album in all the normal places you would buy records. I don't know where people buy records, but wherever that would be, they'll be available worldwide. Anyone.
You're going to have it at
And
shows?
yeah, we'll have it at shows. I will probably have it. Me and Trevor and I are going to be touring starting August. 45-date U.S. tour, and then some in Europe, and we'll have those with us at those shows. We'll probably have special editions of them that are only available at shows, whether they're letterpress covers or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure we'll have special editions of them. So, looking forward to it.
And plan tour with, I think you said you're going to be touring with 2 drummers, right? At some point.
Eventually, yeah. The next tour, the acoustic tour, where it's just me and Trevor Dunn.
Yeah.
That starts in August, and we're going to reissue both of my solo records and including the one I did with Trevor with it, and also including a flexi disc as a double album that'll come out before the tour. So we'll have all kinds of things. We'll definitely have our albums out there. I'm not going to ever do a show where I don't have a Melvins record for sale, whatever it is. I'm trying to sell all my records, you know.
Nice. Well, I don't think there should be any shortage of takers. I know I've looked this up, but you're doing some UK dates with the Trevor Dunn tour. That's right, aren't you?
Right at the beginning of October. And
Right.
then our last show is Halloween night in London.
Mm.
But we're doing it all over England and Scotland, all over. You know,
You're playing
Edinburgh.
Glasgow.
Yep, Glasgow, Edinburgh. Those two. This is the first time I will have ever played in Edinburgh. So I'm really looking forward.
It's a nice place to see. Glasgow's better.
I believe you, but it's like saying, Detroit's better than Cleveland. It's like,
Just I say that facetiously and frivolously. I mean, yeah, make up your own mind. You may have a fantastic time in Edinburgh that is just like a once in a lifetime situation. Who knows?
maybe, I don't know, but I'm a big fan of Train Spotting. I think they filmed that in Edinburgh, didn't they?
I think you're right. Yes.
I'm not sure, but I love that writer and I love that movie. So
yeah. Well,
I love all that. I love all that kind of stuff. In England, I've done. In Europe, I've been there so many times, the better part of 100 times, and I've done little tiny things like that are what give me a thrill now, because I've done pretty much everything else. Like I went to Lawrence of Arabia. I went to his house where he died, the house, and he died outside of it. I went to just stupid little shit like that gets me more excited than anything. Oh, this is where they filmed this. Oh, this is where this happened. Oh, I love all that stuff. I love it. And reading and things like that were a big deal to me ever since I was a little kid. It saved my life. I mean, books are still massively important to me. I mean, it was an escape valve. It was a way for me to, to get out of my own existence.
Yeah.
And still is. It's nothing is more exciting to me than just sitting and reading for 3 hours. Yeah.
Well, I've got a great book by my bedside that I can thoroughly recommend if you haven't read it yet. It's by Nick Soulsby. It's Everything Keeps Dissolving, I think it's called. It's a collection of interviews with Coyle.
Oh wow, that sounds interesting. Yeah,
printed in Estonia. It's a really interesting book.
Sounds good. I like Coyle. Sounds interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my little tip. My more reasonable tip than Prince, but anyway. Buzz, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure, and I hope I will catch you on the road.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.